Hey, what's going on, ladies? It's your boy, Mr. Locario, the bad boy of the dating game. What's good? So, this audio is called Three Types of Men to Avoid. Now, I really wanted to do this audio, and I thought it was very important for this audio to be done because there are a lot of times where women will get into relationships with guys and things will go wrong. And the reason why it goes wrong is because you might not really understand men to an extent. It's kind of like, I always say that if a woman understands how men operate, how men think, they would be at an advantage, because you would know what to look out for and the best types of men to deal with. The problem is that a lot of women just don't understand guys. You understand? So what happens is that you get fooled into dealing with or dating a certain type of guy thinking he was one way when he's really another way, right? And then you get upset and you're like, damn, all these guys suck and I can't find a good man and what's going on, and you're confused and you're hurt and you get jaded. And this all comes from you not realizing what is really going on, because a lot of times guys will put on a certain type of persona, or they will say certain things just to get in your good graces, just because they feel like that's going to make them have sex with you easier, make you like them more, and whatever it is they feel they need to do, or present, they feel they need to present a certain type of person to you in order for you to be, into them. Do you understand? So and this kind of messes you up, because you're thinking you're talking to one guy when he's really like, some other thing, and it's just like, what the hell is going on, right? So I wanted to tell you, ladies, the three types of men you should avoid. Right now, there are, there's a whole bunch of different things you should kind of avoid in certain, there's more than three types of guys you can avoid. But I wanted to get the three ones that I thought were the most important, and what I really see, happening here, and really like give it to you straight. Because, anyone who knows me by now knows that I don't like to bullshit you ladies. And I think the reason why a lot of you ladies are having issues and problems in your dating lives is because you listen to a whole bunch of people who are bullshitting you, right? And you're really getting into relationships or situations with guys who are bullshitting you. You're listening to dating advice that's bullshitting you. So it's just a whole bunch of bullshit that is not really helping you at all. So I really want you to pay attention to this and really take this information in. And some of the stuff that I'm going to say is going to sound like, you might not like what I'm saying, but what I'm saying is the truth. It's kind of like that medicine you took when you were a kid, and it just tasted disgusting and you hated it, but you were glad you took it because it made you feel better. You understand? So I'm that medicine, okay? So I really want to get into this. Okay, so now the first type of guy to avoid is men who try to kiss up to you and impress you. Men who try to kiss up to you and impress you. Now, these type of guys come in, different types of categories where, for example, a guy like this, he's the type of guy who is going to bend over backwards and do anything that you say just to make you happy. Which sounds, you might be saying that sounds nice, but it's really, I'm going to tell you why it's not. You also have the guy who is going to put down other men and side with you. So he's trying to kiss up to you. So basically, let's say if you are talking with your girlfriends and you're like, oh, all these men ain't shit and these men are dogs and these men are stupid. The type of stuff that you might say when you're angry about men, or you're having, you're kind of like jaded with all the bullshit that men, the situations that you've been in with men. Now, if this guy or a guy that you're talking to is kind of siding with you with that, a little too heavy, that's the type of guy who's trying to kiss up to you. That's the type of guy you need to avoid. You understand what I'm saying? Now, the reason why I say this is because These guys are usually doing this because they just want to get vagina. They just want to have sex with you. And they think that by siding with you, or they think that by kissing up to you or showing that their allegiance to you, that's going to make you like them. Do you understand? And the thing is that what happens is that sometimes it works to an extent where you ladies, you would want to feel good about a certain situation. You like the fact that this guy is sticking up for you and saying, yeah, you have a really good guy here saying that all you other guys are doing this nonsense and this nonsense. But what he's really doing is he's really just being kind of slick to just try to get into your good graces. Do you understand? He doesn't really mean what he's saying. You understand? If you're saying men ain't shit and men are dogs and men lie, he is actually the liar you're talking about. But he's pretending to be on your side just so that he can get into your good graces. So you're probably saying, how do you spot a guy who is like this? So if a guy is, and I've noticed this a lot on like social networking sites, like Facebook or even YouTube, guys do videos about certain things. And what happens is that the guy, he will say, certain things to, side with you or make you feel good. But in actuality, he doesn't really mean it. And he's really kind of going against what other men are really feeling. So he's kind of like trying to differentiate himself from those other guys to make you feel better about what you're doing, even if what you're doing doesn't make sense. Because sometimes, what happens is like, sometimes you ladies, you will do something that isn't really that awesome, or really isn't that great to do. Or you might say something that's not really, say you might say something that's harsh about a guy or whatever it is. And so what this guy is going to do, he's going to co-sign it and he's going to agree with you. Even if you're on nonsense, he's going to agree with you, and you're going to notice he's agreeing with you, but you're going to take his agreement because you want to, you want to have someone on your side. But the thing is that this guy is really, he's not really doing this because it's genuine. I'll give you an example. The other day I was on Facebook, and there was this guy, and he wrote a post, and the post basically was saying that, he was saying, "Oh, I'm so upset at the men, and you men need to step up, and you men need to be men for these ladies, and I can't believe it. All these beautiful women out here, and all you guys are acting like boys." And then this is what I'm saying. So the thing is that a lot of women on the post were co-signing this. Why? Because it makes them feel good. It makes us say, "Oh yes, finally a guy who gets what we're going through." Right? But he's just capitalizing off of your emotions. He doesn't really mean this. He's saying this type of stuff in order for you to like him. In order for you to say, "Hey, he's a good one. I want to get with him. He understands." So what they do is they say all this stuff to put down men. They say all this stuff to put men down. And then what happens is that when when you got your guard down, he's going to be like, "Hey, I really want to be that type of man that's going to step up and do what he needs to do to please a woman and blah, blah, blah." So he's telling you all this other crap to get in your ear and make you feel good like that. And then he swoops in and he got you falling for him. And then he had sex with you a couple times. And then he's like, "All right, I'm good. Peace." And you're like, what the fuck happened? And it's because these guys were trying too hard to impress you. They were trying too hard to get in your good graces, trying too hard to, take your side. It's basically, it's almost like, a dude who is, he's a man, but he sounds like one of your girlfriends to an extent when it comes to talking about men, or when he's trying to date you, he's like, you know, saying all these things or doing things just to get you to say yes or to feel good. Like you know when a person is trying way too hard to make you like them. Do you understand what I'm saying? They're putting too much of their best foot forward to try to get you to like them. And the thing is, on the surface, you might look at it and say, well, that's good. I want a guy who's going to be like that. But the thing is, the only reason he is being like that is because he is trying to impress you. He thinks that is what you want to see. So he's pretending to be that in order for you to want to be with him. Do you understand? But he's not really like that. And this is why you need to avoid these guys, because what happens is you're going to get with this dude thinking he's this way, and then you're going to be with him, and then the real him is going to come out at some point, and then you're going to be upset when he's not with you anymore, or he's not calling you anymore, he's not being attentive like you thought he was, he's not being that nice guy that he, exposed himself to be, and you're going to be upset. So you have to really, really be cautious and be careful when you are dealing with that type of dude. Now, does this mean that every guy who, comes to your aid, or who agrees with what you're saying about men, or who, tries to be nice to you is being fake? No, that does not mean that every guy that's doing that is fake. But when it basically becomes, like excessive, when it basically becomes, it seems like this guy doesn't have his own type of thoughts or personality, or any type of, he's not showing anything masculine. He's all about, he's like a feminist to an extent. You understand? Then you gotta be careful, because those guys, those are the ones, the guys who are trying to impress you, the guys who are trying to, down talk men to make, to get on your side, all those type of dudes. Those dudes are doing it because they have an ulterior motive. You understand? And you should basically avoid those type of guys. All right? Now, the second type of man that you want to avoid is men who are not in alignment with what you want. Now, this has more to do with you as a woman than it has to do with the guy. Now, what I mean by this when I say who's not in alignment with what you want is that you need to avoid any guy who is telling you he wants A when you want B. Avoid a guy who's saying, listen, I just want to fuck and fuck and fuck, but you're talking about you want a commitment. You understand? See, what happens is that you might end up liking a guy. You really like this guy. It's something you're just like, oh, I'm very attracted to him. He makes me laugh. He's funny and all this other stuff. And you might be in a point in your life where you're saying, well, I want to be in a relationship, right? Now, what most women will do is they'll see a guy like that who's saying, hey, I just want to have sex. I just want to have sex. And they will say to themselves, well, I can change him. You know what I'm saying? He's going to want me and just stay with. And when you do that, you're setting yourself up for failure. Because I always say a lot of times when these guys are saying this stuff, especially when it has to do with that situation, because that's the situation that happens a lot where guys are like, hey, if a guy is actually honest and says, hey, I just want to, I just want to hang out and fuck around. I'm not really trying to get into a serious relationship. but you're looking for that, and you don't really want to just, fuck around, he's usually real about that, because most guys are going to pretend they don't want that and then really want that and then fuck you and leave, and he's just like, what happened? But it's because they were pretending. But if a guy's actually saying, look, I just want to have sex with you, believe him. Don't try to change him. Don't try to, get with him and think, oh, well, I'm going to change this guy and then he's going to be my boyfriend later because I just feel this connection. No, you're going to set yourself up for failure. Now, let's say this. Let me say this. Now, let's say you want a relationship and you meet a guy who is like, I just want to fuck around. I just want to have sex, right? I'm not necessarily saying you can't date him. I'm not necessarily saying you can't see him. All I'm saying is you can't really expect for that guy to be the guy who's going to really just fall for you like that when he is not at that point yet. He's at the point where he just wants to have sex and do all this other stuff, right? Now, there is a chance that if you date him and you go around and y'all hang out and you have fun, because it's the thing, you can do that with him, but also while you're doing that with him, you're still dating other guys and trying to find that guy who is in alignment with what you want in order to have that committed relationship. You can still do both. You can see him and see another man, or see other men until you find that guy. And then once you find that guy, you tell the guy who just wants to fuck, hey, listen, it's been fun, but I'm trying to do this right here. You can do that too. A lot of women don't want to do that, or they say, oh, this is just too much or whatever, but you still can do that. And also what can happen too, in some cases, is that even if you fuck around with the guy who just wants to fuck, in certain cases, he can still be a guy who might want to be with you later on. Like, let's say y'all started out just fucking around and he ends up noticing like, hey, I really like her, and then I want to be with her. That happens. You understand? But generally speaking, you don't want to mess with a dude who is not in alignment with what you want, more so because of how you're going to feel. You understand? This is what I said at the beginning of this segment, is that it's more about you than the other guy. It's more about you making the choice not to deal with him if that's not what you want. And the opposite is the same thing. Let's say if you just want to have sex and you just, you're young or whatever, or you're older and you're tired, you've been in a relationship for a long time, you just want to have some fun, and then you're with a guy who's like, oh, but I want a girlfriend and I really want to, don't mess with this guy, because it's going to be too much conflict. It's always better to deal with guys who are in alignment with what you want. Now, I want to bring back this exception, when I was talking about the guy who just wants to fuck, and let's say you want a relationship, there's always that thing where you can still date him and it might turn out to be, something could happen. But again, I really want to stress that you need to find more dudes who are in alignment with what you want. Because when you do that, it basically makes it easier for you to get what you want, instead of you trying to change a guy into what you want. Because that's what it's really about. Because what happens is, I'm not talking about where you necessarily where you find a guy who's like, hey, I just want to fuck, and you want to have a relationship, and y'all get together, y'all fucking whatever, and maybe he might want to get with you later. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about there are guys, the main thing is there are guys who are just gonna want to fuck, and nothing is gonna want to make them change. You understand? Because they're at a point in their life where they only want to do that. Or they only might see you as just someone that they just want to have sex with. That's another thing. Which is not a bad thing. But if you are really like, well, I really want a boyfriend, it's best to get with a guy who's more in the mind state of, hey, I want to have a girlfriend, or they're in that stage. So you might say, okay, how do I find that type of guy? You understand? You're saying, how do I notice this guy? How do I figure out if he is that type of dude? You understand? Now, the thing is this. This is like, it's really difficult to find out if a guy is like that. You understand? Most likely a guy is usually like that if he's older. Let's say if he's in his late 30s, he might be like that. If he was, if he was already a player back in the day. This also, you have to probably do a little bit of research on this dude, ask him some questions or whatever, see what his life was like or whatever. Because if he was a player back in the day and had a whole bunch of girls and he's older and he's saying, hey, listen, I'm just, I'm good. I've been done there, been there, done that, whatever. Then he's more likely the type of dude who wants to be with a woman and be with her, and he might be in more of an alignment with you if you are the type of woman who just wants a man. And so it's more about you like asking questions and seeing where this guy is at. And if he's a little bit older, most cases the older guys are ready to quote unquote settle down, because they are, they've passed all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? If you're talking to like a 22-year-old and he's like, yeah, girl, I want to settle down, most likely he's on some bullshit. You understand what I'm saying? But, the thing is that you just really, asking questions and seeing where the guy's head is at. But also, it also can come through with within time, meaning that you'll date a guy and then y'all hang out, y'all have some sex, y'all go to the movies, y'all do all this. And then you end up noticing, damn, we've been seeing each other for a couple months. And then he's like, yo, I want to, you seem cool. I like you. And then y'all get together and y'all make it happen. So sometimes it comes within the time frame of you being together, and then it kind of develops over time. It's not something that you can really predict at the time, because it needs to take time in order for it to develop. You understand? But, the easiest way I always say to know if a guy is the type of guy who wants to, stick with you or just wants to have sex is you basically got to have sex with them. And a lot of women hate when I say that, but it's true. So let's say if you are the type of woman who wants a guy to be your boyfriend or your man, and you're like, oh my goodness, what if he's just with me for sex? Then you have to get sex out of the way and then see if he sticks around. And not necessarily you just having sex with him because you want him to stick around. There should be a guy you want to have sex with. You should still actually like the guy enough to have sex with him. I'm guessing you like the guy enough to have sex with him if you actually like the guy enough to see him as a potential boyfriend. But the thing is, you have to get the sex out of the way and actually to actually see if the guy is the type of dude who just wants sex or wants something more. I look at it as like the reverse, where I had a guy who was like, how do I know if a girl wants me just for my money or for me? I was like, in a specific scenario, let's say a guy is rich and he's like, I wonder if she just wants me for my money or she actually likes me for more than the money. I say, okay, give all your money to charity, or give at least 90% of it or whatever. And if she sticks with you, then it's because it was you. If she doesn't, it was most likely the money. You feel what I'm saying? So the same thing with guys. You want to know if a guy's just with you for sex, have sex with him. And then after the sex is done, if he stays, it was more than just the sex. You understand? But, at the end of the day, for you and for yourself and for your own well-being and for your own, sanity, it's best to understand what you want and then find men who are in alignment with what you want and focus more on them. Not saying you can't, have, mess with this other guy over here and, have a little fun with this guy over here. But the main thing is you gotta, focus more on the guys that are in alignment with what you want. So the thing is that you just want to avoid the men who are, really not in alignment. You want to avoid more of the men who are not down with what you're down with. And there are certain guys who are going to make it extremely obvious that they're not down with what you're down with. So like if you want to have a boyfriend, there are going to be guys who are going to make it extremely obvious that they only want to do is have sex. If you're the type of one who just wants to have sex, you don't want no boyfriend, you ain't trying to get into all of that, there are going to be guys who are going to make it obvious that they want to, to be with you on some boyfriendy shit. Now, are there going to be guys who are going to be kind of ambiguous? Yes. And those are the guys you're going to have to kind of like, sift through and test out. That's just how it is. All right. So now we're getting down to the third type of man to avoid. Now, the third type of guy to avoid is men who don't do what they say they're going to do. Men who do not do what they say they're going to do. Now, this is something that you have to notice overall. This is something that's very important as far as choosing a guy to be with, because this is the type of guy who is what I would basically call like a real man. They always throw this around, oh, this ain't a real man, you ain't a real man, you ain't a real woman, whatever it is. But I believe a real man says they're going to do something and then they do it. Now, are there times where there are things that come into play where they're not able to do what they said, or there are certain things beyond their control that, it made it harder for them to get things done? Yes. But generally, if a man, he's going to say he's going to do something, he should do it. And you need to watch out for guys who do those things. The ones that do not do what they say they're going to do, avoid those guys. Now, you're probably saying, why? Now, the thing is this. If you're going to be in a relationship with a guy, a committed relationship with a guy, you want to make sure that this guy is the type of guy who you can depend on, who you can rely on when things get tough, who you can, you can feel basically good about knowing that he's going to make things happen. Do you understand? And a lot of it comes with his character. So let's say, you just know a guy from around your way, or you know a guy in your at some events that you probably go to, or groups that you're a part of, or at a church, or whatever it is that you do, and you notice that he says, hey, I'm going to make this thing happen, and 9 times out of 10 he does it. That's the guy you need to talk to. Now, if a guy is always talking about what he's about to do or what he's going to do and it never gets done, that's the type of guy you need to avoid. You understand? Because you don't want to get into a relationship with a man who says they're going to get things done or who's going to make things happen, and then they don't basically follow through on their responsibilities, because that's going to directly affect you and your lifestyle and your comfortability. Do you understand? Now, let me throw something in here really quick so you don't get things twisted. Now, don't confuse a man saying he's going to do something, but with you expecting a man to do something when you want to do it. Because a lot of times Women will say, oh, can you make this happen? Or I want you to do this, or I want this to go down, or I really wish you would do this right now. And the guy doesn't do it when you say to do it. And then you feel like he doesn't listen to you, or he's not going to get things done, or he's saying he said he was going to do this, but he didn't do it. No, you have to realize it's about him saying he's going to do something, and then he is doing it, not necessarily you suggesting for him to do something, and then he probably didn't do it, or he took long to do it, or he did it like 2 days later or whatever, because what you asked him to do, he probably said, yes, yeah, I'll do that, but it wasn't necessarily coming from him. So I have to really make that that little thing distinguished between those two things, because you got to understand it's a different thing. Because I know a lot of times you're with a guy and you ask him to do something, and he says, yes, I'll do it. And then he's like, and it doesn't get done either at the time you want it to be done, or it doesn't get done right away. It gets done later. And you're like, oh, why did it take so long to do it? And, and you're like, Mr. Lucario saying, if a guy says he's going to do something and he doesn't do it, he's not the type. No. Remember, you're asking him to do something, and he's agreed to do it, even though he should also do that. But what I'm saying more so applies to him being a man, and something coming from him saying that he's going to do it, and him following through on what he's doing. Not saying that your suggestions aren't valid, not saying that what you are talking about holds no merit. And most of the times when you ask the guy to do something, he usually gets it done. But the thing is that sometimes there might be factors that are keeping him from doing that thing exactly how you wanted it when you wanted it done. You understand? So, for example, I had a friend who, his wife, she was like, he was supposed to get the car fixed. And he was like, well, yeah. She was like, oh, could you please get this car fixed? He said, yeah, honey, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get the car fixed. And the thing is, she wanted the car fixed, on like that following Tuesday or whatever. But he said, listen, it's not fixed yet. It's not going to get fixed on Tuesday. I got to get it fixed on Friday, because that's when I'm going to get the money in order to fix the car. You understand? So it's not necessarily him not doing what he said he's going to do. It's just that he needs to do that at a time when it's logistically possible for him to do it. But again, that happened from him agreeing to something that his wife said that she wanted him to do. I mean, and the thing is, even though he still did it, it's not at the same time as she wanted it to be done. So I don't want you to get that confused and think that that's a guy who doesn't do what he said he's going to do. No. What I want you to understand is that you need a man, or it's best to be with a man who stands by what he believes in and what he believes that he needs to do or get done, and he says he's going to do it, and he does it. Because if you're with a guy who's not doing these things, if you're with a guy who does not do what he says, then he is a guy that you cannot depend on. He is a guy who you can't count on for him to be stable, for him to be that rock in the relationship. Do you understand? Because a lot of times what happens is, if you have a choice between a guy who is going to be, who's going to take care of you, or says who's going to take care of you, and then you have another guy who says they're going to take care of you, right? But then one guy, every time he says he's going to take care of something or do something, he never does it, or he slacks, or he doesn't really do it. What makes you think he's going to be able to really do it when it comes to you? What makes you think he's going to be able to take care of you when it comes to you, when he's not taking care of these other things that he said he was already going to do for himself? You understand? So you got to pick a guy who says they're going to do something and they do it. See, this is why, a lot of women end up with guys who, You know, they end up getting pregnant by some dude who's a loser, who's not about anything, who doesn't get anything done, who's not about what he says he's about. And then they wonder, they're like, oh my goodness, how could he just leave me? And, you know, you don't take care of your kids or whatever. But the thing is that you notice that this guy was not that type of guy. He was not the type of guy who was about his word. He was not the type of guy that does what he says and makes things, you know, and is responsible. That's not his character. See, his character was to be a guy who is unreliable, who says they're going to do one thing and does the other thing. Do you understand what I'm saying? If you check out the guy's character, you would have understood that that guy would have been the type of dude who, if you got pregnant, he most likely would not take care of that kid because he doesn't take care of other things in his life. You understand? So this is why you have to avoid those type of guys. You have to peep out the type of dude he is before you deal with him. You understand? So if when you understand that dynamic, you'll be choosing better dudes. Now I'm going to go through all of these real quick again. So the first type of guy to avoid is the guy who's kissing up to you and putting down other men and trying to take your side all the time. Second type of guy to avoid is the guys who are not in alignment with what you want. And the third type of guy to avoid is men who don't do what they say they're going to do. All right? So those three types of guys are the guys that you have to avoid. Now, I really want you ladies to understand what it is that you can do in order to make your dating lives, more fruitful, more interesting, more exciting, more, have better experiences. This is why I do these podcasts. This is why I do these audio programs. This is why I write these books. Make sure you get my book, It's Your Fault You're Single, Tips on Finding Mr. Right. This is why I do all this stuff. Because I really want you ladies to get into a headspace of understanding the reality of these situations. A lot of times people are not going to tell you the reality of the situation because a lot of what the reality is not pretty. It's not something that's going to make you feel all warm and gushy inside all the time. But what it's going to do, it's going to help you in the long run to actually get what you want. See, I always say, like, I'd rather you be better than just feel better. And again, I want you to feel better, but you will feel better when you be better. See, it doesn't help you to just make you feel better if you're not going to be better, because all the feeling is going to go away once you realize and get back down to earth and realize the reality of the situations. So I want you to be better. And the way you're going to be better is if you understand, what's really going on when it comes to you dealing with men. Now, before you turn off this video, I want you to do two quick things. One, I want you to click the link below and send me your questions. If you have any questions on dating and relationships, I'll make a video about it. And two, I want you to click the link under that to get my free audio program, 7 highly effective steps for finding and keeping a man. And I'll talk to you guys later. Remember, the truth is inside you. Peace. I'm gone.